to make the utility tax 2% to 4%, and in 1 year we balanced the budget, and ever since then we run budget surpluses. That half a penny went to fund the community center, which was wanting since 1992 for the residents.
Thank you, Satish. Okay, now we're moving on to the town council members. And the next question will be, or candidates, town council candidates. That was, I don't know if that was a Freudian slip, but it was obviously a slip. Okay, the next question is for Joyce Jones-Ivy and Joe Burnett, in that order. And the question is, and this is a repeat that the mayoral candidates have already answered. How will you determine if or when the golf operation becomes an unacceptable financial drain? Joyce?
I've determined that right now. And it didn't take a mental financial giant to make that determination. We're losing $2.2 million a year. You cannot make that proposition break even. I don't care what kind of voodoo bath you use. We're losing money on it, and something needs to be done because it's our tax dollars that's being flushed down the toilet. So right now, we need to take a look at the National Golf Foundation's recommendations and do something about it. I understand that there is a proposal for the golf course to become 27 holes. Let's do it. If it's supposed to save us $500,000, let's do it. It makes sense. I'm on a fixed income.
Joe Burnett.
Go ahead and repeat your question.
I can do that. How will you determine if or when the golf operation becomes an unacceptable financial drain?
Right after I determine that the $500,000 or $600,000 we're losing on the aquatic center gets fixed first and have lost for the last 4 or 5 years. The point is that everything, and Mr. Whitfield said it, everything in this town is done with sales tax dollars. Everything we do is subsidized to one degree or another. Golf, aquatic center, public safety, water's different because we pay for that. Everything else we do. Losing money is breaking even. When we say it's breaking even, that means that our operational costs and our receipts are showing that we're paying what we need to pay to keep it in operation. Over time, it will improve. There's no question about that. It's just going to take some time. You can't do it in the first 3 years. Thank you.
The next question is for Melanie Barrett and Lou Waters. And again, it's already been asked of the mayoral candidates. Please describe your vision of how the town of Oro Valley would change if you served for the next 4-year term.
Yeah, well, I think we would have a lot more citizen input. We would bring back town hall meetings. Neighborhood meetings and planning and zoning meetings are not town hall meetings. I've been to a lot of them. They're developer presentations where neighbors get to see what's going to go in next to them. I've heard that said by the town staff before, that they're going to see what goes in next to them. So we could bring back town hall meetings. We could bring in some digital methods of communication, such as online forums where we can ask questions of the residents to get their input. We will also be prioritizing the things that the citizens are asking for: playgrounds, ball fields, ramadas. These things are not that expensive compared to the losses that we've been sustaining for golf, which was number 33 out of 34 on the statistically valid survey that this town wanted, meaning our residents did not want it. So no matter how much the subsidy is, we didn't want it. But we do want other things, and there are things that aren't being provided. So when I'm elected to the town council, those are things that I'll be pushing for.
Same question for Lou Waters.
I did read the portion of the general plan where the citizens of Oro Valley said they wanted a community center. So we have a community center. The only thing left for that is to make it as successful as we can and grow the programs. The future of Oro Valley depends not only on our construction taxes, but when our developable land runs out, annexation is the next thing on the list. And we have done that. It took us 3 years to get Town of Oro into Oro Valley, a world-renowned biological park. That takes us right across the street from Casas Adobe's. Casas Adobe's is surrounded by 13,000 homes. Those homes would provide sales taxes, continue the activity of our amenities, our police department, everything else that we have here needs to be supported by our sales taxes, our bed taxes, our utility taxes. And
The next question is for Josh Nicholson and Mary Snyder. Do you have any cautionary comments or opinions about the Troon contract renewal coming up in 2019?
So, the Troon contract 2019, I believe it's in June, and then we have to make a decision a few months before that. So, whoever's in office coming in November, we got to jump on right away, and I think we have to revisit the NGF study and take a look at that. And we also have to, if we don't go with the Troon contract, we still have to have a nationally organized contract. So we'd have to go out right away and talk to other nationally recognized management firms and try and bid it out and try and find out what is the best route forward for the citizens, for our tax-paying citizens, and what's going to provide the best benefit for them.
Mary Snyder.
It's amazing we've spent this whole time on golf when there's 95% of the budget and operations of the town that are not being discussed. I just want to make that comment. The Troon contract is already being looked at. That is the town manager and the town attorney's responsibility to bring a recommendation forward. Council doesn't negotiate contracts. We simply approve a recommendation brought forward by our attorneys and our business staff, our CEO. That contract is going to change because Troon no longer manages tennis. There are other changes going on. It's going to change. And the fact that we would enter into a 15-year cycle is not even, it isn't even worthy of discussion. That is not what we would do. We will be responsible about the conclusions that are found by our attorney and our town manager going forward. What makes sense for the residents, we will do. Thank you.
The last two questions are for Satish Hiremath and Joe Winfield. And first to Satish Hiremath, the question is, are Troon's financial and operational reports for the Town of Oro Valley's golf courses independently audited? And if not, should they be?
Yes, they are.
Okay. Joe Winfield?
Well, I don't have knowledge if they're independently audited or not. I think that what's clear to me is that this golf courses that are managed by Troon under mandate by the agreement that Satish and these incumbents entered into with HSL, that they are losing significant millions of dollars. And this is important to our community. You've heard the Satish incumbents say that this is only 5% of our budget, whatever it is. It represents 75% of our parks and recreation budget. It is diverting important resources from our community for the amenities that they want. In 8 years, there's not been a new playground or play structure. In 8 years, there's not been ramadas or picnic areas. In 8 years, there's not been indoor basketball courts. And all of this is a result of them ignoring the significant losses that have been burdened by our community.
The next question, and beginning with Joe Winfield, in what situations do you think it is appropriate for the town to compete with private businesses?
Let's think about the core functions of the town. The core functions are public safety, infrastructure, and parks and recreation. When the town entered into this agreement with HSL, a major campaign donor who's contributed more than $100,000 to re-elect Satish and these incumbents, we entered into an agreement that immediately put us in competition with local restaurants. Now, recently I met with Rob at Z Pizza. We had an event there, and I talked with Rob about how his business was doing. He says it's tough in the summertime. He goes into the red. He has to get a loan from the bank. And then as summer ends, he works himself out of it. It's interesting, just in a short distance is a restaurant that's operated by us, by the Town of Oro Valley, that Rob is paying taxes to, and that restaurant was competing with them. Why did it take 3 years for this council to come to the conclusion that we shouldn't be in the restaurant business? We should have never been in the restaurant business.
Satish Hireman.
He's pretty passionate. So I think that if the town built a golf course, I think if the town built a restaurant, I think if the town built a fitness center, you're right, I would not have been for that, and I wouldn't entertain it. The issue is, it was a take it or leave it deal, and it's an entire package, right? So out of that 324 acres, forget what's on there, out of that 324 acres, there's still today currently development rights entitled. So for $1 million interest-free, which we now own, we have listened to the residents. They think that we shouldn't be in the golf course, so we're going from 45 holes to 36 holes, and they said that we should be out of the restaurant business, which we are now getting out of the restaurant business. The implication that Rob at Z Pizza is failing because of a restaurant that the town owns less than 3 years, it's ludicrous at best. But this is where they want you. They want you in the weeds. They want you talking about the 2.5% of the golf losses, but yet they don't want you to add the revenue source, and that's by design.
As I mentioned before, that most of the members of our Government Affairs Committee are new to the committee, and there were changes in the format and the process. And I would encourage candidates, residents, anyone in the audience to pass, any information along, what you liked, what you didn't like, and they would greatly appreciate your input. Now each candidate will be given 1 minute for their closing remarks and in reverse order. So that means we will be starting with Josh Nicholson.
So I didn't get to it in the first place, but they have talked about my experience. I just want to talk a little bit about my experience. I am born and raised Chandler, Arizona, parents from Grand Forks, North Dakota, and I have a double bachelor's in aeronautical science. I graduated magna cum laude, and after that, when my very first job, I worked in the aerospace industry for University of North Dakota as a flight instructor, and they didn't have any programs with high school students. I created a high school mentorship program with that university. And I mentored a student from the time he was 16 years old in high school all the way till he became air traffic controller. And I didn't know that until I went to a seminar up in Phoenix, and I met him, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is Eric. And Eric was now making more money than me working for that pay. Which is great, it made me really happy. Also, 10 seconds. Vice president of my association, I'm on the safety council. I go to DC every single year. I make relationships with our congressmen, and I work very hard.
Joyce Jones Ivy.
I want to ask you for your vote. We are desperately needing to get rid of the incumbents. Anytime you have a mayor that can say, I don't have to ask the community what they want because I know, follow that up with getting us in golf debt, increase in tax, increase utility tax. Well, I certainly didn't ask for it. And he's got the council people down here in lockstep with him. Well, they're not listening to us either. They're following his edicts. Let's get rid of them. Let's get this golf issue solved because we're going to solve it. Let's get that budget under control, 5 times the rate of inflation, 59% increase under them. Really? That's not acceptable to me. There are tax dollars. This is our town. Let's take it back. August 28th, we need your vote.
Melanie Barrett.
Thanks. I think they're trying to make it seem like we're getting in the weeds when we talk about important town issues, like what this town is spending money on. I just want to point out that I have in front of me a PowerPoint presentation from when this golf course was first proposed. And in the 5-year plan, it shows the revenues exceeding the expenses with no sales tax money involved. And suddenly we're breaking even 5 years earlier. Why is this important? Mary said the council doesn't negotiate contracts. That seems obvious. We have a 585-page contract with the mayor and council's largest campaign donor, which restricts what we can do with this property. And that contract does prohibit any development on the property. So there are no current development rights on the golf course with that contract. Why is this important? It's important because we aren't being given the things that we're asking for. Those things are reasonable, those things are affordable, and those things will benefit all of Oro Valley's residents, and we can give them.
Blue Waters.
As I mentioned at the beginning, it's sad how facts are ignored by some folks. I've heard 25% increase in taxes for a half-penny tax increase. I've heard about the golf losing 2.2 from the incumbent challengers, 2.5 for Mr. Winfield. They don't have those numbers together yet. We haven't developed parks, playgrounds, ball fields, ramadas. They're all in the Naranja town site master plan. Main streets, I'm on the advisory board. There is no plan. It's a concept. Stakeholders, property owners, architects, engineers, citizens are sitting in a room coming up with ideas about the future. All I can say is, for special interests, when I came into this job, in the first place, the special interest we were accused of supporting was the police department.
Mary Snyder.
Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Oro Valley is a place we all decided to choose to call home. We are a diverse group of people with a variety of needs that need to be met in order for us to say that we live a high quality of life. Oro Valley has momentum. Changing direction now goes against all economic development strategies when the challengers are talking about a temporary pause and moratorium on growth. This should be more alarming than what the golf is, and the golf is breaking even. 2%, 5% of the budget. What about the other 95% of our obligations to create and run this community? There's no conversation about that. Mr. Nicholson has said in an interview in the newspaper that he wants a 5% across the board cut in the budget. Any cuts are not necessary at this point because we're balanced, but you need to be strategic and surgical because the first thing that will drop is public safety.
Joe Barnett.
I don't know where to start. first of all, our golf courses are watered with reclaimed water. We've already used it, let's not go into detail. Growth is a part of every community. A community that doesn't grow dies. Tucson lived through it, they're starting to come back, it's taken years. I don't know why these folks want to reassess what we have as the general plan, voted on by a 70 to 30 ratio, depending on who you talk to, 75 to 25. It's a number. The point is it's overwhelming. It lays out the vision, it lays out the steps to get to that vision. We are charged with doing that. It talks about parks, it talks about Marana, it talks about a community center, it talks about amenities, and it tells us how we're going to get there. Oro Valley and its planning and zoning, and believe me, the general plan isn't just about planning and zoning, it's about economic development and everything. The point is, it's the most citizen-driven part of this community, from neighborhood meetings all the way through P&Z and council, I think.
Joe Winfield.
You know, I'm surprised sitting here next to Satish for him to speak about Rob, his wife, and their small business, Z Pizza. I think that cavalier attitude, that out-of-touch attitude is a result of the significant special interest and developer investment that's gone into Satish and this mayor and council. As of June, that amount is closing in on almost $250,000. That buys a lot of influence. And what that does is it distances you from the small business owners like Rob and the community at large. And that's one reason I spoke about the investment in my campaign. There's over 70 members of the community. That's $13,000 that the community has donated to my campaign. When you look at Satish's, they contributed $575. That's a 20-to-1 difference. And it illustrates the significant community support that I have for this candidacy as mayor. Please vote for me on August 28th. Thank you.
Satish Hireman.
So now it went from 100 to 200 to $250,000. So let's take the $250,000, divide that by 7, and divide that by 3 elections. You can do the math. So governing is serious business, folks, right? You should expect from your government leaders to provide the basics: water delivery, roads, public safety, and parks and recreation. We have not only done that, but we have provided for your quality of life. So what you're talking about is political sound bites that are just designed to incite you emotionally. It's politics 101. And I'll tell you, voting for Joe Winfield or voting for the challengers is going to seriously affect the quality of your life. Joe Winfield started this conversation by saying he wants to be mayor because he wants to be mayor. That shouldn't be good enough for you. We live in a democratic society that gives you the right to choose who you want to represent you. This is a serious election, again, that's going to have serious consequences on the quality of your life. While the choice will be yours to make, it should be yours alone. Shouldn't be based on what you read. It shouldn't be based on the negative sound bites or the negative campaigning. It should be based on who you think is going to be the best suited to lead you. And I think it's me as your mayor, Joe Hornet, Mary Snyder, and Lou Waters. Thank you for your time.
But please give all the candidates a round of And I do want to apologize to Satish. It was not intentional. I think it showed that I was eager for it to be over too. And as I mentioned before, if you have any questions that were not answered, the candidates will be further down the hall. Meet, greet them, and ask any questions you might have.